Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Shatterpoint Stats Center. I'm your host Steve, and join me for the big one as we look back over the 10 events across 5 different countries with a whopping 258 players, because it's been Adepticon weekend and there have been events all around the world as well. I'm excited, you're excited, let's get on with the show. And to add some extra context as well, not only am I looking back over the 10 rated events, there were also 7 unrated events that ran over the past weekend across 5 different countries as well, with another 121 participants. Now, most of those were in the Adepticon team event, so 92 of those in the Adepticon team event, but we also had events unrated running in Finland, Spain, Lithuania ran a key operations, and there was another unrated one in the UK. So even though we're not going to look at those, it has been a mammoth weekend for Shatterpoint all around the world. Let's have a look at our first event. And where better to start than in the USA, out at Adepticon for the Shatterpoint World Championship qualifier. We are going to be looking at all the 4-0 and 3-1 lists from this event. Buckle in, it's going to be a big one. So, in first place after the qualifying round, we have Will, and Will was running Boss, Fixer, 7 Scorch with Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Wolfpack, then Luminara, Crosshair and the 212th, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rex and the Republic Clone Commandos on shifting priorities. And Will ran a Boss Anchor list playing the Luminara twice. So, yeah, well done to Will there. Then Brennan was in second with another 4-0. And he was running Cassian, Ezra, Baze and Chirrut, Kanan, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos, Boss, Wolf and 7 Scorch, so mixing up where Fixer goes with Luminara and then Fixer on that side and the 212th on Never Tell Me the Odds. Interesting choice of mission there. And Brennan ran the Boss list twice in the first game and the last game, and the Kanan Cassian list twice. Then in third is Mike, and Mike going 4-0 was running Cassian, Callus and Baze and Chirrut, then Kanan, Ezra and the Rebel Commandos, Vader, Jedi Hunter, Padawan Ahsoka and the Padawan Learners, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Pond and Sev and Scorch, so playing the 7 Scorch with Ponds there. And Mike used the Vader and Ki-Adi-Mundi list 3 times, choosing just to use Cassian and Kanan on the first game. Then in fifth, we've got General Joseph, and they were running Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Republic Clone Commandos, Boss Fixer, 7 Scorch, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti and the 501st, then Obi-Wan Kenobi, Captain Rex and the 212th. And here we can see Boss was the favoured match with Boss Hunter, with Obi and Ki-Adi being played once. Then next we have Will Adams, and Will was running Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti and the 501st, Boss Fixer 7 Scorch, Anakin, Ahsoka and the Arfs, and then Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Republic Clone Commandos on Sabotage Showdown. And Will again favouring the Boss Hunter list 3 times, and Anakin Ki-Adi first in round 1. Then Scott was next on the final of the 4-0s. And Scott was running Cassian, Callus, Baze and Chirrut, Mando, Dengar and the Rebel Commandos, Hunter, Wolf and the Wolfpack, then Boss, Fixer and Sev and Scorch. And Scott again was favouring Boss Hunter, playing Boss Hunter 3 times and Mando Cassian once. Then we move into the 3-1 category, and we have Matt Richards up first. And Matt was running Cassian, Callus, Baze and Chirrut, Mando, Dengar and the Rebel Commandos, Boss Fixer 7 Scorch, Hunter, Wolf and the Wolfpack on shifting priorities. And Matt played the Boss list 3 times, getting that out of the way 3 times, and finally for Game 4 using the Cassian and Mando list. Then unplayable trash. Then Sloth is our next list on the 3-1s. with Boss, Fixer, 7 Scorch, Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the 212th, Luminara, Crosshair and the Republic Clone Commandos, Vader, Rex and the 501st on strategic positions. And Sloth was again favouring Boss here. I assume that Luminara has been entered in there at the end. Was it a Lumi list at the end? Yes, Lumi there, yeah. So it was Boss Hunter for 2, but Boss Anchor the whole way. So yeah, Vader in game 1 and saving Luminara for the last round, but unfortunately that's where the loss came. Then Unplayable Trash Panda, and they were running a jumbled mix of letters, which looks like we've had a little glitch. But it was Boss Vader, then Cassian and Jin again, and then Boss Vader to finish. Then Robert Ashley was our next 3 and 1. Robert was running Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Republic Clone Commandos, Boss, Fixer and Sev and Scorch, then the Armourer, Paz Vizsla and the Covert Mandalorians, and then the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan and the Clan Kryze. Great to see some Mando love there, and Sabotage Showdown was the mission. But it was the Boss and Hunter list that got played 3 times, and the only loss came with Mando and Armourer. Then Alan Weber is our next 3 and 1. And Alan was running Logray, Chewie and the Trappers, Leia, 3PO and the Rebel Commandos, Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut, and Mother Talzin, Django and the Night Sisters on Never Tell Me the Odds. Looks like the SPT code's been entered into the wrong section, but luckily Alan has written it out there. And we have Cassian and Mother being played 3 times before using the Leia and Logray list at the end. But nice to see some other units hitting the board and still going 3 and 1. Then on to Phil here for the next 3 and 1. And Phil was running Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut, Kanan, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos, Boss, Fixer, 7 Scorch and Luminara, Crosshair and the Wolfpack on First Contact. So the first time we've seen First Contact. And it was the Boss and Luminara list that got played first and only once. Then Cassian and Kanan, all the rest. Then Merlin is the next one on our 3 and 1s. And Merlin was running Boss, Wolf and 7 Scorch, Luminara, Fixer and the 212th, Cassian, Ezra, Baze and Chirrut, Kanan, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was Cassian and Kanan in the first match, and then Boss and Lumi for the rest of the day. Then Chris is our next list, and Chris was running Cassian, Callus, Baze and Chirrut, Mando, Ezra and the Rebel Commandos, Boss, Fixer, 7 Scorch, Hunter, Wolf and the Wolfpack on Sabotage Showdown. And it was a balanced amount of time of lists played by Chris. So Boss and Hunter twice, and Mando and Cassian twice. Then Dominic is our next 3 and 1. And here come the Separatists. So we've got Grievous, Kalani and the Magna Guard, Riff, Nosserai and the Aquadroids, then Mother, Savage Opress and the Night Sisters, and Cad Bane, Aura Singh and the Bounty Hunters. So that is looking like nearly the boxes, isn't it? That's almost exactly all the boxes on Sabotage Showdown. So great to see the Separatist love. It was Cad and Mother in round 1 with the loss, but then Riff and Grievous got the job done, getting the 3 wins. And taking Dominic through to day 2. Then our next 3 and 1 as we move down. We've got Applejacks, and Applejacks was running Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti and the 501st, Plo Koon, Nadar Veb and the Padawans, then Boss, Pons and Sev and Scorch, and Hunter, Fixer and the Clone Commando. So choosing to play a point down to get 7 Scorch further up the board, and you love to see Plo Koon on the table as well. So it was Boss and Hunter played 3 times, got the 3 wins, and then the Ki-Adi and Plo list was the loss, but completed the destiny. Up next is Major Schmexy, and they were running Cassian K2SO and the Rebel Pathfinders, Jin, Bodhi Rook and Baze and Chirrut, Kanan, Ezra and Chopper, then Hera, Sabine and Zeb. So interesting that they chose the Pathfinders and not the Commandos, given that they are not being featured in other areas of the list. And Sabotage Showdown was the mission, and we had the Spectres run in round 1, then Cassian and Jin for the rest of the day. Then Red Wolf is up next, and Red Wolf was running Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, Bodhi Rook and the Rebel Commandos, Leia, Lobot and Lando and R2, then Mando, Bosk and Han and Chewie in it for the money, then Cassian, Kallus and Baze and Chirrut on strategic positions. And we have Leia, Mando in round 1, and then Cassian and Luke for the rest of the day, getting the 3 wins before losing the final round. Then Matt Serino is our next list. And Matt was running Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut, Leia, Charming to the Last, Sabine Wren and the Rebel Commandos, Boss, Wolf and Seven Scorch, Luminara, Fixer and the Republic Clone Commandos on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was 2 and 2, so we have Cassian and Leia played twice, then Boss and Lumi played twice. Then Cody Hawkins was up next, and Cody was running Anakin, Padawan Ahsoka and the Arfs, Logray, Chewie and the Rebel Pathfinders, Leia Organa, Freedom Fighter, Luke Skywalker, Daring Hero and the Rebel Commandos, then Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti and the 501st on First Contact. And Cody lost round 1 with the Leia Logray, but decided to play it again in round 2, and then used Ki-Adi and Anakin for the next 2 games. Then Brendan O'Neill is up next, and it looks like more Galactic Republic with strategic positions, the mission, and Boss, Wolf and Seven Scorch, Luminara, Fixer and the 212th, then Vader, Padawan Ahsoka and the Padawan Learners, and Ki-Adi-Mundi, Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding and the Republic Clone Commandos. And it was Vader and Ki-Adi sandwiching the Boss and Luminara in the middle. Then Dylan Dizzard is up next. And Dylan was running Lord Maul, Gar Saxon and the Mandalorian Super Commandos, the Armourer Bo-Katan and the Covert Mandos, then Cassian, Boba Fett, Baze and Chirrut, and Mando, Sabine Wren and the Rebel Commandos on strategic positions. So Mando and Armourer were up first, then the Armourer and Maul next, then the Armourer and Cassian, and the final part of the anchor, Armourer and Mando again. So brilliant to see an Armourer anchor there. Very unique and well done, Dylan. Then Austin Finn is up next, and Austin was running Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding and the 501st, then Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti and the Padawan Learners, so lots of Jedi on the board there, then Moff Gideon, Death Trooper Escort and the Dark Troopers, and Krennic, Kallus and the Shore Troopers on shifting priorities. And Austin had a bye in round 1, so getting the bye out the way, but then still chose to fulfill their destiny by playing Anakin and Ki-Adi twice, and then Krennic and Moff Gideon once. Then Scrambler Brandon W is our next list. And they were running Cassian, K2SO and the Rebel Commandos, Jin, Luke, Daring Hero and Baze and Chirrut, the Armourer, Bo-Katan and the Covert Mandalorians, Luminara, Gar Saxon and the Clan Kryze on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was a Lumi Armourer sandwich here, so Lumi and Armourer first and last, with Cassian and Jin in the middle 2 games. Then Austin Adams is our next 3 and 1. And Austin was running Mace Windu, Captain Rex and the 501st, Boss, Fixer and Seven Scorch, Cassian, K2SO and the Rebel Commandos, General Solo, Bodhi Rook and Baze and Chirrut on First Contact. And Austin ran the Cassian and Han Solo list 3 times before closing out with the Boss and Mace list. And then Jonathan Borden, who is Qui-Gon Din, is up next. Qui-Gon has talked quite a lot about his list on his YouTube channel, so do go check it out if you're interested. And it was Mace Windu, Captain Rex and the 501st, Vader, Padawan Ahsoka and the Arfs, Padme, Pons, and Seven Scorch, and then Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti, and the Padawans on strategic positions. And it was Mace and Ki-Adi in round 1, then Mace and Vader in round 2, Mace and Padme in round 3, and finishing off again with Mace and Padme to get the win and go through to the next day in round 4. Then Blastromech Holden is up next. And they were running Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rex and the Republic Clone Commandos, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Fixer and the Clone Troopers, Cassian, Dengar and Baze and Chirrut, and then Mando, Boba Fett and the Rebel Commandos. So interesting that Fixer features without the rest of Boss's squad here. And Sabotage Showdown was the mission. And it was Mando and Cassian played 3 times, and the only loss coming with Obi and Ki-Adi. Then John Connor is up as our next list. And John was running Luke Skywalker, Bodhi and the Rebel Commandos, Kanan, Kallus and Chopper, Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut, and then Leia, Lobot and Lando and R2 on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Cassian and Kanan in round 1 and round 4. And then Cassian Luke was the loss, and Cassian Leia there as well. So classic Cassian anchor list. Then Matthew Butcher was next. Matthew had General Anakin Skywalker, Rex and the Arfs, Boss Fixer 7 Scorch, Cassian, Kallus, Baze and Chirrut, and then Leia, Ezra and the Rebel Commandos on strategic positions. And Anakin and Boss were played twice, and Cassian and Leia were played twice. Then Mountain Mike is up next, and Mike was playing Leia, Freedom Fighter, 3PO and R2 and the Rebel Commandos, Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut, Kanan, Kallus and Chopper, Mando, Luke Skywalker Daring Hero, and Han and Chewie in it for the money on strategic positions. And it was Cassian and Kanan in round 1, then the rest of the Cassian anchor was Cassian with Leia in round 2, and then the Cassian Mando in the last 2 games. Then Joshua Lee, also known as Sarah Gruel, is up next. And they were playing Iden, Gideon Hask and the ISF, Maul, Django and Fifth Brother, Thrawn, Death Trooper Escort and the ISB, then Vader, Stormtrooper Sergeant and the Dark Troopers on strategic positions. And it was Vader and Iden played 3 times, and the only loss coming with Thrawn and Maul. Then we are scrolling down. We are nearly reaching the end of the 3 and 1s. So we have Griff Castle next. And they were running Krennic, Vader and the Death Troopers, Grand Inquisitor, Third Sister, Fifth Brother, Cassian, K2 and the Rebel Commandos, then General Solo, Bodhi Rook and Baze and Chirrut on strategic positions. And Griff lost round 1 with the Cassian and Han list, so decided to pivot immediately into Grand Inquisitor and Krennic there, and finish off with 2 wins with Cassian and Han. Then next is Amber Kuhn, and Amber was running Leia, Bodhi and Baze and Chirrut, Jin, Ezra and the Rebel Commandos, Ahsoka Tano, Jedi No More, Shakti and the 501st, then Mace Windu, Rex and the Arfs on strategic positions. And Amber played the Ahsoka and Mace list in round 1, Jin and Leia for the rest of the day, and sandwiched the loss in the middle there with the 2 wins to get through to the next day. And our final 3 and 1 and last of the lists that we will be looking through on this event is Philip. And Philip was running Hondo, yay! Ezra and Lando and R2, lovely thematic there with Hondo and Ezra, absolutely love it. Hera, Sabine and Zeb, then Cassian, Death Trooper Escort, Han and Chewie, and Leia, Lobot and the Wing Guard on shifting priority. So what a fantastic list for us to end on. And Hondo saw the table with Cassian 3 times, and Leia and Hera were the loss in round 2. So well done to everyone in the qualifying event. We may see some of those lists again when we look at the top 64. But yeah, really big, well done, and fantastic to see such a well-attended event. And after reading off all those lists, I am quite pleased for the first time ever to have a tournament where there are no lists to read. And this is the rule of 2. So it was a 2-player team event. It's listed as a 3-player team event, but you only needed to register 2 players. And the winners were the Red Mandos, going 3-0. And they had brought Cassian, Leia, Kanan, then Kiadi-Mundi, Obi-Wan, and Mace. So very well done to the pair of them there. Fantastically, though, and really fascinatingly, there were 2 draws in the event, presumably because it was the individual results of the games would determine whether you won or lost or drew the round. So I would imagine that the other lists, the list that finished second, just won and lost 1 game in each of those rounds. So yes, brilliant stuff. And lovely to see a team event in Australia. And we stay in Australia for Eureka Balls 2026. What a fantastic name for an event. And it's just a 3-round event. And in first place, we have Danny Chips. And Danny was running Hunter, Wolf and the Wolfpack, Boss, Fixer and Seven Scorch, Cassian, Ezra, Baze and Chirrut, and then Leia, Chewie and the Rebel Commandos on Sabotage Showdown. And in round 1, it was Boss and Cassian, then Leia and Cassian, and then Boss and Cassian again. I presume it's Boss and Hunter in one of those matches, and it's just been entered wrong. So well done there, Danny, for the 3-0. Then looking at the 2-1s, in second place we have Hyde. No list submitted here, but it was Cassian, Kanan, Leia, and Mando. Then in third we have the OG, Qui-Gon Jinn. And Jim was running Jin, so Luke Skywalker, Daring Hero, and Han and Chewie, Leia, Bodhi, and Baze and Chirrut, then Vader, Stormtrooper Sergeant, Stormtroopers, and Krennic, the Death Trooper Specialist, and the Death Troopers. And in round 1, the loss came with Iden and Vader, and then the wins were with Jin and Leia, and then Vader and Iden redeeming themselves in the final round. Then in our next list, so Steve was in 4th for the next 2-1. And Steve was running Hera, Callus and Chopper, Kanan, Ezra and the Rebel Commandos, then Mando, Bo-Katan and the Clan Kryze, and then Armorer, Paz and the Covert Mandalorians on First Contact. And it was the Spectres that got played twice, and the Mando Armorer list played once. And then our final 2-1 was Bamington, and they were running Armorer, Paz and the Coverts, Mando, Bo-Katan and the Clan Kryze, then Kanan, Ezra and Zeb, and Leia, Callus and the Rebel Commandos. And it was Mando and Armorer twice, and then Kanan and Leia for the final round. So well done to all of you, and big well done to Danny for the win. Over to Russia for a small 6-person event, the Force Trials 26. So 3 rounds, and in first place we have Mikhail, and they were running Anakin, Rex and the Arfs, Padme, Sabe and the Republic Clone Commandos on shifting priorities. So unless the new meta has dropped already in Russia, it will have been the old Sabe and the old Padme. So big congratulations on getting the win with those lists there. Then in second place we have Pavel, and Pavel was running Moff Gideon, Death Trooper Escort and the Dark Troopers, then Thrawn, Gideon Hask and the ISBs. And then our final 2-1 looks to be Separatists, and this was Evgeny, and they were running Dooku, Nosserai and the B2 battle droids with Riff, Kalani and the B1s. So well done there, guys, and looks to have been a fun event. Then just a quirky little event here in France, with only 1 player having registered, but they did win a game. So their list was Dooku, Riff, Asajj and Luminara, so seems to be Separatists heavy, and they have won their tournament. So congratulations, Mestre. Well done. I hope you had fun. And we now find ourselves back at Adepticon for the Shatterpoint Premiere Showdown. So we will be looking at all the 4 and O's and 3 and 1s again. And in first place at this one, going down to strength of schedule, was John. And John was running Cassian, Ezra, Baze and Chirrut, General Solo, Chewie and the Rebel Commandos, then Boss, Fixer, 7 Scorch, and Hunter, Wolf and the Wolf Pack on shifting priorities. And John favoured the Boss and Hunter list, playing it 3 times, with the Cassian and Han list being played once. And then Sax Garson, sounds very familiar name, can't quite put my finger on where I may have heard that one before, but Sax Garson is going 4 and 0. And they were running Cassian, Ezra, Baze and Chirrut, Leia, Kallus and the Rebel Pathfinders, then Solo, K2SO, Lando and R2, then Kanan, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos on shifting priorities. And it was a Cassian anchor list with Cassian Han, Cassian Kanan, Cassian Leia, and then Cassian Kanan yet again. So well done to those 2 4 and O's, and well done to John for the win. Then we move on to the 3 and 1s, and in third place we have Jacob. No list submitted by Jacob, but we see Hondo there, and Cad Bane with Moff Gideon and Thrawn. So love to see Hondo hitting the table. Then in fourth place, we have Eric West, and Eric was running General Solo, Bodhi and Baze and Chirrut, then Luke Skywalker, Ezra and Lando and R2, Vader, Death Trooper Escort and the ISBs, and then Grand Inquisitor, Third Sister and the ISF on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Vader and Grand Inquisitor in round 1, then Luke and Han in round 2, and round 3 and round 4. Then in fifth place we have Aqui Spectre. No list unfortunately, but it's Kiadi and Anakin and Mando and Armorer as the primaries. Then our next 3 and 1 is Jeffrey, and Jeffrey was running Boss, Fixer and 7 Scorch, Kiadi Mundi, Shakti and the Padawan Learners, with Hunter, Wolf and the Clone Commandos, and then Vader, Jedi Hunter, Ahsoka Tano and the 501st on strategic positions. And Boss and Hunter was played once, with then Kiadi Vader next, Kiadi Vader again, and then Boss Vader to round out. And our final 3 and 1 from this event is Danny, and they were running Asajj, Kraken and the B2s, Dooku, Django and the Magna Guard, Grievous, Kalani and the B1s, and Riff, Nosserai and the Aquadroids on strategic positions, so love to see the Seps. Unfortunately, a loss in round 1 with the Dooku Asajj list, but then submarining back up with Dooku Riff, Dooku Grievous and Dooku Asajj redeeming themselves in the final round. So a Dooku anchor list there with the Separatists. You love to see it. So once again, big well done to John and Sax for going 4 and 0. Grab your coffees as we sit down to go through the World Championship Top 64 at Adepticon. We're going to look through all the 4 and O's and 3 and 1s, even though we may have encountered some of them already. So our top 4 and 0 was Iceman Dean B, and Dean was running Kiadi Mundi, Padawan Ahsoka and the Clone Commandos, Plo Koon, Shak T and the 501st, Mace, Rex and the Arfs, and then Vader, Jedi Hunter, Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding, and the Padawan Learners on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Kiadi and Vader in round 1, Kiadi and Mace in round 2, Kiadi and Vader in round 3, and then Kiadi rounding out the anchor list with Plo Koon in round 4. Then our next list was Kenny Brown, and Kenny was running Cassian, Kallus and Baze and Chirrut, Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, Bodhi and the Rebel Commandos, Boss Fixer 7 Scorch, Hunter, Wolf and the Wolf Pack on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Boss and Hunter kicking off with the first 2 rounds, and then Cassian and Luke for the next 2 rounds. Then Matt was next going 4 and 0. And it was Cassian, Ezra, Baze and Chirrut, Leia, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos, Boss, Wolf and 7 Scorch, then Luminara, Fixer and the Clone Commandos on Never Tell Me the Odds. and it was Leia and Cassian in round 1, Boss and Luminara in round 2 to remove the destiny, so fulfill the destiny, and then Cassian and Leia to round out the day and the 4-0. Then Godliness Duncan up next, and they were running Cassian, Ezra, Baze and Chirrut, Dooku, Nosari and the B2s, Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Republic Clone Commandos, and then Boss, Fixer and Seven Scorch on strategic positions. So Cassian and Dooku pairing up not once, not twice, but 3 times, and Boss and Hunter featuring only once in the 4-0. Then in 5th place was Lamb Chop, and they were running Kit Fisto, Shakti and the 501st, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rex and the Clone Commandos, Boss Fixer, Seven Scorch, and Kiadi-Mundi, the Barriss, Offie, the Jedi Padawan. Fantastic to see Barriss on the table, and the 212. And it was Kiadi and Kit in round 1, Obi and Kit in round 2, Kit and Boss in round 3, and the final Kit and Kiadi in round 4. So love to see the Kit anchor there in the 3-1s. Then in 6th place was Matthew Butcher, and Matthew was running Anakin, Rex and the Arfs, Boss, Fixer and Seven Scorch, Cassian, Callus and Baze and Chirrut, then Leia, Ezra and the Rebel Commandos on strategic positions. And it was Anakin and Boss in round 1, then Leia and Cassian finishing off the day with the loss coming there in the middle of those games. Then Matt Bronson is up next, and Matt was running Boss, Fixer, Seven Scorch, Luminara, Rex and the 212, then Kanan, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos with Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was Cassian and Callus in the first 3 games to lock in the 3 wins, and the loss came with Boss and Luminara in round 4. And then the final player to make the top 8 from the 3-1s was Red Wolf, who we saw earlier. And Red Wolf was running Luke Skywalker, Bodhi and the Rebel Commandos, Leia, Lobot and Lando and R2, Mando, Bosk and Han and Chewie, then Cassian, Callus and Baze and Chirrut on strategic positions. And it was Cassian and Luke played twice there, Cassian and Leia once, and Cassian and Mando once. So yes, those were the top 8 there. I won't be looking back necessarily over the top 8 lists. I'll have a think about it, but I may not look back over them, given that we've covered them just there. And I'm sure as well, if you haven't seen the live streams, then please do check them out. There was lots of those games are available to watch, and I'm sure many other content creators will be looking back over them. But let's have a look further down now at the other 3-1s that unfortunately didn't make it through to the top 8. So up next is Scott Evil Houdini, and they were running Hera, Bodhi and Baze and Chirrut, General Solo, Callus and the Rebel Commandos, Vader, Jedi Hunter, Barriss and the Padawans, then Kiadi-Mundi, Shakti and Phil's clone. So Barriss and Phil's clones featuring there with Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was Hera and Han being played 3 times, and Scott actually went 3-0 before losing the final round, and the Kiadi and Vader list featured there in round 2. Then Spitfire was in 10th. And they were running Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut, Kanan, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos, Boss, Wolf and Seven Scorch with Luminara, Fixer and the 212 on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was Cassian and Kanan featured at the beginning and at the end, and Boss and Lumi there in the middle with one of those losses coming there. Then in 11th was Will, and Will was running Boss, Fixer, Seven Scorch, Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Wolfpack, Luminara, Crosshair and the 212, and then Obi-Wan, Rex and the Clone Commandos. And it was Boss and Lumi sandwiching a Lumi and Obi, and then a Boss and Hunter there, with the loss coming with the Luminara and the Obi-Wan list. Then Unplayable Trash Panda features again, and this is the garbled list here, but let's have a look at when they played their primaries. So it was Boss and Vader in round 1, then Cassian and Jin there at the end. They did go 3-0 before losing the final round. Then Will Adams was up next. And Will was running Kiadi-Mundi, Shakti and the 501st, Boss Fixer and 7 Scorch, Anakin, Ahsoka and the Arfs, and then Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Republic Clone Commandos on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Anakin and Kiadi, so losing round 1, then submarining back with Boss and Hunter getting 3 wins and putting them very close to qualifying for the top 8. Then Darth Poos was up next. And we have Cad Bane, Crosshair, and Sev and Scorch. A really interesting build. I like it. With Hunter, Shaq T, and the 501st. Really interesting list here. And then Mando, Dengar, and the Rebel Commandos with Cassian, Chewie, and Baze and Chirrut on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was Cassian and Mando featuring 3 times, and that really fun list, unfortunately, was the loss for Darth Poos with the Hunter and Cad Bane in round 2. Then up next is Evan Ritt, and Evan was playing Cassian, Ezra, and Baze and Chirrut, Riff, Crosshair, and the Bounty Hunters, Leia, Lobot, Lando, and R2, then Kanan, Callus, and the Rebel Commandos on shifting priorities. And it was a round 1 loss with the Cassian and Riff, before Cassian anchored with Leia, Kanan, and then Leia again to get the 3 wins and finish strong at the event. Then up next was Nick Downing, and Nick was running Boss Fixer, 7 Scorch, Luminara, Crosshair, and the 212th, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rex, and the Clone Commandos, and Hunter, Wolf, and the Wolfpack on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was a Boss anchor with Boss Lumi being the loss at the beginning, and then the submarine with the Boss Obi and Boss Hunter 2 final rounds there to finish strong as well. Then our final 3 and 1s are Robert, who was running Hunter, Wrecker and Omega and the Clone Commandos, Boss Fixer and 7 Scorch, Armourer, Paz and Covert Mandos, and Mando, Bo-Katan and the Clan Kryze on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Mando and Armourer getting the 3 wins, with the loss coming with Boss and Hunter against Scott Evil Houdini. You wouldn't have put money on the 3 wins being Mando and Armourer, but I am over the moon that they were. Then the next 3 and 1 is Sam Sweden, and they were running Cassian, Callus, and Baze and Chirrut, Hera, Sabine, and Chopper, Jin, K2SO, and Lando and R2, Mando, Dengar, and the Rebel Commandos on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Cassian and Mando round 1, then the loss comes with Cassian and Hera before Cassian anchors with Jin and rounding out with Mando winning again. And the final 3 and 1 is Griff Castle, who we saw earlier. And they were running Krennic, Vader, and the Death Troopers, Grand Inquisitor, Third Sister, Fifth Brother, Cassian, K2SO, and the Rebel Commandos, and then General Solo, Bodhi Rook, and Baze and Chirrut on strategic positions. And it was Cassian and Han that get the 3 wins, with the loss coming with Krennic and Grand Inquisitor. So well done all of you guys, and in particular the top 8. Maybe I will have a look at the top 8 in a little while just to round out the video. Our next event takes us to the UK for the Mystic Games Thremier Showdown, and this was a Thremier event, and in first place is some guy called Shatterpoint Steve, and he was running Boss Fixer 7 Scorch with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rex, and the 212th, then Hunter, Wolf, and the Wolfpack troopers there on shifting priorities. Now this was a strict Thremier event, which meant that you had to play all of your pairings, so it was Hunter and Obi in round 1, then Boss Hunter round 2, Boss Obi round 3, and Boss Hunter in round 4. Then our 3 and 1s were Ailsa, and she was running Cassian, Callus, and Baze and Chirrut, Kanan, Ezra, and the Rebel Commandos, Leia, K2SO, and Lando and R2 on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Cassian and Kanan round 1, Leia and Kanan round 2, Cassian and Leia round 3, and then Cassian and Kanan round 4. Then the next 3 and 1 is Robin Valentine, and Robin was also running Obi-Wan with Rex and this time the Commandos, then Boss Fixer and 7 Scorch, Hunter, Wolf and the 212th on Sabotage Showdown. And it was Boss and Hunter in round 1, Boss and Obi in round 2, Hunter and Obi in round 3, before Boss and Hunter closes out in round 4. And then finally for the 3 and 1s we have Tom, and Tom was running Armourer, Paz Vizsla and the Covert Mandos, Mando, Bo-Katan and the Clan Kryze, and Maul, Gar Saxon and the Mandalorian Super Commandos on strategic positions. And it was Mando Maul in round 1, Armourer Maul in round 2, and then double Mando Armourer to finish off. So for those of you who are interested in my full tournament report, please do check out the video that I released yesterday, so the video just before this one, if you want to hear a bit more of a deep dive into all my games. And we stay in the UK for another Thremier event, and in fact the other unrated UK event that I spoke about earlier was also a Thremier event. So on the same day in the UK there were 3 tournaments and all of them were Thremiers. This one though was not a strict Thremier, so you didn't have to play all possible combinations. You just had to fulfill your destiny. And in first place we have Arahane, and they were running Riff, Wet Man, Wet Robots. So I assume that means Nosserai and the Aquadroids. Then Mando, Dango, and the Weakways. I assume that's Django there, or Dengar maybe. Yeah, probably Dengar, right? And then Leia, Luke, and Chase. So Baze and Chirrut. So yes, really mixing it up there. No mission submitted. Tisk tisk. But I did enjoy your list submission there. And it was Riff and Leia round 1, Riff and Mando round 2, and Riff and Mando in round 3. Then Powder Monkey Gaming was in second place, going 2 and 1. And they were running Hondo, Boba, and the Lando and L3. I presume it's Lando and R2 there. Then Han, Chewie, and the Nuke. So I could be the Weakways. I don't know. And then Hunter, Wrecker, and Echo and Tech there to round us out. Again, no mission. And it was Hondo and Han in round 1, Hondo and Hunter in round 2, then Hunter and Han in round 3. So big respect for playing all your combos. Then our next 2 and 1 is Dr. Monologue, who was running. This is more like it. It was Grievous, Django and the Weakways, Riff, Nosserai and the Aquadroids, Luminara, Kalani and the B1 Battle Droids on shifting priorities. And it was Riff and Luminara in round 2, Riff and Luminara in round 3, and Riff and Grievous, unfortunately, the loss in round 3. And then the final 2 and 1s were Alex Bloom, and they were running Anakin Skywalker, Padawan Ahsoka and the Arfs, Kiadi, Shakti and the 501st, Obi-Wan, Rex and the 212th on the strategic positions mission. And it was a round 1 loss, unfortunately, with Anakin and Obi going down, then Anakin and Kiadi in round 2. And again, big respect for playing all 3 combinations with Kiadi and Obi getting the win in round 3. So well done to you guys. Looks like a really fun event. And here we go, just for completion's sake and to round out an epic weekend of Shatterpoint, we have the World Championship Top 8. We will look at the 3 and 0 and the 2 and 1. So in first place, winning Adepticon and the World Championships was Matt Bronson, and Matt was running Boss, Fixer and 7 Scorch with Luminara, Rex and the 212th, Kanan, Sabine and the Rebel Commandos, Cassian, Ezra and Baze and Chirrut on Never Tell Me the Odds. And it was Cassian and Kanan all day long. And then runner-up with 2 wins and 1 loss was Iceman Dean. And they were running Ki-Adi-Mundi, Ahsoka Tano and the Republic Clone Commandos, Plo Koon, Shakti and the 501st, Mace Windu, Rex and the Arfs, and Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding and the Padawan Learners on Sabotage Showdown. And again, big respect for playing the same list, but this time it's the Kiadi and Plo Koon featuring in the top 8 and getting all the way to the final. So big well done, Matt, and huge respect to Dean for Plo Koon in the final. So there we have it. What an enormous weekend of results. Fantastic to see so much Shatterpoint being played. And for those of you who saw the reveal stream and want to know my thoughts on things, I am feeling really, really positive about Shatterpoint at the moment. The meta changes that are going to be coming in May will hopefully have a really big positive impact on the game. We're going to be getting some new boxes. There's loads of interviews out there with the various designers from AMG, so do check those out because it's often in those interviews on various channels. So I'm thinking Omnis Protocol, and Momentous Struggle in particular, but there are others, particularly Legion channels, also ask about Shatterpoint in some of their interviews. So do go check out any interviews that you can see that you think might feature Shatterpoint, because it is sounding really, really positive. The game is continuing to be supported, and it's just going to be a little bit slower on the releases. But I'm feeling much, much happier than I was, and I wasn't even feeling that unhappy about it all, to be honest with you. So yeah, I am really, really excited to see kind of after the balance patch drops, we'll see what that does to the data, and see how things change. So yeah, really, really happy with that. So thank you very much if you stuck all the way through this huge stat show today. I doubt there will be a longer one this year, maybe if some other big events land at the same time, but yeah, I think this one will probably be the biggest one of the year. So what's coming up next? Well, hopefully tomorrow I will do the March Meta Watch, and get that released, and then we have the Q1 Meta Watch as well. So we'll be looking back over the data for the 3 months and see what happened there. So I suspect we can guess who the top 2 might be, but maybe there'll be some surprises along the way a little bit further down. So thank you all very much for watching. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, etc, etc, etc. Let's keep continuing to grow Shatterpoint, continuing to grow the channel, and I will see you all very, very soon. Bye for now.